Jeffrey Gobel, Mark Lundborg, Joshua Runyan, Philip Sparbaro, and Tamas Vidovsky. And this is an interesting one. The USA came through a somewhat contentious semi-final against Germany, where they thought they'd taken it before the referee decided not to give a hit, and then a final action at 29 apiece quite rightly went to the German team. And the USA, strongly fancied in this tournament, very strong individuals within that team, find themselves in the bronze medal match against a Japanese team who have got big fighting spirit and beat them in the pool stage earlier on today. Now, whilst my passion is for watching a lot of fencing, men's sabre is one of my favourites, my weapons men's foil. So it's my great pleasure to present these finals to you. I'm Karen Bashir, but I'm joined by a sabre expert extraordinaire from the British team, Richard Cohen. Richard, welcome to the commentary position here in Cairo.
Well, it's a great pleasure to join you. And the British team was drawn with the Japanese and the Americans, and we lost, I'm afraid, to both of them earlier today, and then watched the Japanese, who are 6th seeds, lose to the Americans, who have in their team 2 gold medal winners and a silver medalist. So it's an incredibly strong team, number 1 seeds, and they lost on the last hit. It is wonderfully exciting to watch. The great question is, can the Japanese do it twice?
But this is an amazing American team, isn't it? I mean, the thing here, let's put aside that we're at the Veterans World Championship. This is a World Championships, and the Americans would have been expecting to be in the gold medal match.
Absolutely. They expected to be fighting particularly against the Italians. And the Italians are in the final, and the Americans basically have mucked up.
Well,
they also lost in the semi-final by 1 hit to Germany, so they're going to be really, really intent on at least getting some kind of medal out of this.
Well, it's time for the team huddles here. Great camaraderie, Richard. We've talked about this throughout the tournament so far. Before we get into the action here, I must congratulate you on your last fight in the British team's ultimate defeat. You fenced superbly well. I think you got 10 or 11 hits in your last match.
I won 10-5 against the Italian, who is world champion, and indeed he was world champion last year. So that was pleasing. It meant that the British, rather than going home with our tail between our legs, felt, well, we got something out of it.
And particularly, I think it was your 6th or 7th hit where you did a couple of dummies and you tricked your opponent really well. It was a very classy hit, and you're a Category C fencer.
When my children hear you've described something I did as a really classy hit, I'm going to be teased no end. But it was very pleasing to get that kind of result.
Well, you've now just given me an opening to mention that you are the second generation of Cohens to come into the commentary box. Your daughter Mary, who fences at senior level in women's épée, has been into the commentary box with me on a couple of occasions. And I tell you what, Richard, you've got a lot to live up to. She's very good as an expert commentator.
She is very good. I mean, she's been 3 times national champion, so I'm now known as Mary's dad.
Yes, but of course we've been competing at tournaments at the same time, Commonwealths in particular. I remember on a number of occasions.
I remember you thrashing me at foil, that's certainly.
Yeah, I didn't dare pick up a sabre against you, that's for sure. That was my brother's job, I seem to remember.
Now, the person starting for Japan, Yamato, has really improved this year. He trains with one of the British teams, Steve Fox, who says they've got a new coach in Japan, and it's really brought the whole Japanese team up a level, as you see from the fact that they're in the last 4.
It goes up against Richard Brown of the United States, who picked up a silver medal.
He picked up a silver. I had him in my first round pool, and if I can say so, beat him 5-1. I couldn't believe that he not only won the silver, he got to 9-all with the Italian who won the gold medal, and has been fencing very well, and his son, who is himself a very good fencer, has been here to coach him.
Great stuff. Losing out to Ricardo Carmina in that final, and we'll see Carmina a little bit later on. But so what we can tell you is, because of the delay at the end of the previous session, we haven't actually got the order of this particular match. But what we can say for certain is it's beginning with the C category fencers.
That's right. That's the fencers who are over 70 years old, some of whom do move unconscionably fast. And you'll see probably Richard Brown loves to take up the attack, and he's very fast on his feet.
Well, here we go. Start of the bronze medal match in the men's team sabre competition here at the World Veterans Fencing Championships of 2019. As Richard Kern said, Richard Brown has come out on the attack, 2 in a row for the Americans. Because of the short format, Richard, six fights on the accumulator, but the target score of 30. If you get into the lead, even in sabre at an early point, it is very advantageous.
It definitely is, and it's like sabre itself. Generally, fencing at sabre favours the attacker.
I've noticed in particular here, I mean, now you say at open level, at senior level, if you get on a long attack, 9 times out of 10 you really should score. But I've seen that tactic being employed here, perhaps even more so than at open level.
I remember one of the British team watching the British women winning the sabre team and saying, it was very good sabre, they're actually doing parry ripostes.
Well, Mamata has got back on level terms.
Mainly by doing what's called a counterattack, that the American was holding back, and the Japanese fencer immediately launched a simple attack which took the timing away from the American.
And of course the block out then comes into play as well, with that being slightly reduced, and that's why the long attack is favoured in sabre, because if you can be patient and stay at the right distance and then explode at the end, it's very difficult to, 1, find a parry, and 2, land a counter and block at the same time. Fascinating weapon here. It's super fast at all levels, including Katz. The referee decides to have a look at the video review on that one of his own volition.
Referees have been told, particularly at sabre, try and separate the attack. If you've got 2 fencers going hell for leather against each other, don't say, on guard, it was a simultaneous action, I'm not going to give a decision.
This time a card is coming out for, was that use of the back arm? It was a straight red card. I think this was for use of the back arm. And you're not allowed to use your non-sword weapon to defend yourself. And that is a straight point to the Japanese fencer. Referee going to his pocket again, another card here, and it's another red card.
That was for starting before the referee said go, before he said fence.
So despite being the aggressive fencer here, Brown has gifted a couple of points to Mamata. After an excellent 2-0 start, Mamata has fought his way back into this.
Watch Brown's feet. He moves very, very quickly as soon as the referee says fence.
There's an air of tension in the room that I have not felt throughout all 3 days. A beautiful little fake to try and stop the attack. When it didn't come, that parry riposte really super fast with the hand.
The Japanese actually are very good when their attacks fail, picking up the riposte, and Yamata almost got it. So it's a very, very close, but a very nice riposte.
Yeah, beautiful. And but the 2 points that were gifted there to the Japanese fencer have kept them right in this at the early stages. As we switch over to the second match. And it's Meraki on for Japan and Runyon on for the USA. Richard, how important is this draw of lots, the order of the fencers coming out?
Well, what happens is you toss between the 2 captains, and if you win the toss, you can nominate which of the 3 levels, ABC, age levels, comes first. The other team then says what the second bout should be, and then obviously there's one left over that is third. And so you want to win the toss to put your worst person, your weakest person, on first, when they'll have least influence.
But if you lose the toss, you effectively get to decide who the last bout
Which, of course,
is
is vital.
Yeah, so it's what would you rather, win or lose?
It depends on your team. If you've got one very strong fencer, you're longing to have them on last, so you want to lose the toss.
Well, what we can tell you, Josh Runyon, as we know, is the Cat B world champion yesterday. So this is the B category. So I think we can safely conclude that it will be the A category fencers coming on for the third fight. The other interesting thing for me, Richard, I know we're kind of letting this one fight it out and the audience can watch what's going on, but tactical substitutions, how does it work? How do you make a choice? Is it based on what's happening on the piste, or do you make the decision beforehand if you're going to substitute?
No, you generally don't make the decision beforehand, and it varies enormously. I mean, the Americans at the over 70 level had got the silver medalist and the bronze medalist. So they're both very strong fencers. Which do you put on? And you box and cox it. Sometimes you'll know who your opponent is in the opposite team, and you'll say, well, you're on paper stronger, but you always lose to him, so you'll pick your other fencer. So it really is an interesting piece of tactics, and people can get it wrong.
Yeah, I saw it interestingly with the British women's sabre team with Viv Frith and Sylvia Brown, who gold and silver medalists.
Absolutely.
Perhaps not the way round that people would have necessarily guessed, but well done to Sylvia. She took the world title, and the team captain actually changed around when they were fencing and putting them in and out and switching them around.
And people have different rules. The Americans say, we will choose the two fencers in the age group who did best in the individual competition, no matter what the reputation or results beforehand.
Yeah, it's tough for them as well. Just to make the four in all categories in the USA is tough, I'm told. But here, a 5-0 run from Runyon in the second is being matched by Lundberg, who won the Category A world title. Again, not necessarily the number one men's Saburo at Category A.
No,
and
not at
he
all.
came through and booked his place in the team event by taking the world title.
Now, we've just seen two double actions, and I think the referee was wrong to put them both on guard.
Well, wasn't prepared to separate them, and
Now, the fencer making that sign, you may have already explained, can ask for a video. It's an appeal by video. And there's another referee who's watching the fight on video. And I know exactly what the American is going to be arguing, that the Japanese fencer fell short on his first attack, and it was the redouble that landed. We'll see what the video referee and the main referee decide.
yeah, Ilgin Gukla from Turkey is on the video
No,
for this
but
match.
they've given it. They've said it's just one long attack.
And the hit stands for the Japanese athlete. Beautiful power riposte. Stepped in and was luring that one.
He knew where it was going from the moment the Japanese started.
Early start from Kikuchi. Get away with a friendly warning on that one. Lundberg's first step off the line is really impressive, isn't it? He's
Absolutely,
eyes
it's controlled.
open.
Yeah.
And even if he finds himself in a situation where he's not quite sure what to do, Kikuchi's not actually reacting fast enough at the moment to make his decisions. This time he makes the decision off the line. Lundberg's ready for it.
No, there's a bit of a difference of class between these two, and it's showing. I mean, you'd expect the Americans to be strong favourites here.
Well, it's
Lovely
a 15-1, 5-1 run in that match, which puts the Americans 15-5 up at the halfway stage. Now we have to keep an eye not only on whether the Japanese can fight their way back into this, but if they, in particular, decide to make any substitutions.
Incidentally, I don't know whether people are a bit mystified to hear the referee talking in French, which is the language of fencing. In the 18th century, the French said, we are the masters of Western Europe in cookery, in ballet, in fencing. We will set the vocabulary for the activities. And that's continued, from, well, certainly still in fine food, but in fencing, the French language is still the one that's used.
Yeah, it tends to be the one that's used until you get athletes that, as the sport's grown around the world, with the Americans now becoming much stronger, and of course the Asian continent now becoming much stronger with Korea and China. Sometimes English has come in, and in recent times the International Federation have said it's fine for you to use English as well.
Well, as the federation's based in a French-speaking country,
yes.
I don't think the French are going to be sitting happily with that decision.
I tend to agree, and the referees do tend to primarily referee, as you say, in French. Sometimes when you hear explanations, if they're explaining something to the fencers, they'll speak in English. Well, the Americans have really got a stranglehold on this. And Richard, you've opened another door for me. You are a extremely knowledgeable historian across the board, but particularly about fencing, and you've written a number of books as well that I'm sure our audience would be interested in knowing about.
Well, if people want to watch fencing in the future of the Olympics in Tokyo, I wrote a book called By the Sword, which is a history of fencing. Although, as one of my children said, you're in your anecdotage, I tell lots of stories about it.
It's great.
It's fascinating.
It's a great book to read.
You've got the whole history of dueling. You've got, 7 American presidents fenced. He gets into everywhere. Hollywood Oscars. Oscar is holding a sword, and the House of Commons is separated, the two sides, by the length of 2 swords. And we shake hands to show that our hand isn't going towards the sword. So it's culturally really interesting. And we're talking like this because, unfortunately, the Americans are walking away with it.
Yeah.
If walking is the right term.
I think it is. I think it's fair to say that. Richard Brown on with a commanding lead here. Target score in this fight is 20 points. Mamata coming off the line sharply there, though. Fairly simple attack as well.
These two met in the pool round. I was in the same pool in the individual event, and the Japanese won. So Richard has really improved his game.
You won't be impressed with the Japanese team here today.
Richard has asked again for a video recall. Each fencer is allowed 2 video recalls. And you think, you've got the same kind of thing in tennis and so on. And if your call is right, if the decision is overturned, then obviously you still have 2. Mm-hmm. But if you get 2 wrong, then that's it. And however bad the referee might make the next decision, too bad. And
it's interesting because I've spoken to a couple of athletes here who've never experienced the video review system, and they forget that they can use the video, or they burn their video too early and then they call for another one and say, no, time's up, you can't have another one. So it's interesting that it's a great thing for
very much so. When we had our match against Italy, I had a fencer on the strip, one of my teammates, and he said, if we want to object, you do it for me. And there was a decision which went against him. So I went up and objected and asked for the video recall. And the referee said, you're not allowed to. It's got to be the fencer. And Barry, the fencer, didn't know what to do because he wasn't used to it. And in the end, very late, he said, video. And the referee overturned the decision.
Perfect. You see it as well at the Open Championships, the Senior Championships as they're known, that the coach will jump out of the box and do the big TV screen, and the referee says, I can't accept this from you. And then the coach shouts at the fencer, video. Adds
he did
to
it
the
again.
drama.
Look, that's another card against Richard Brown. I say he likes attacking, and he tries to start as early as possible. It's like a sprinter getting out of the blocks too early. Yeah,
and I think at the moment that he has a little bit of room to make a couple of mistakes, and it puts the Japanese, though, fighting their way back into this bit by bit. You often see in sabre a run of hits one after another.
Yeah. Well, again, you look at patterns in your opponent, and if you get the patterning right, you're always one move ahead mentally, or can be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the logical tactical circle, as some people refer to it as.
That's a nice riposte by the Japanese.
Back within 4. This is a good leg. 10 hits from Mamata so far.
And you see Richard Brown clench his fist, trying to impress the referee. It really was his hit.
Nice. Just clipping the inside of the wrist.
Could be. We can't see. It might have been his Richard Brown's tummy.
I'm glad you said that. Just coming through on the inside in the first action. We saw the red light flash up.
I thought it was counter time. I think he got Richard Brown's counter attack and riposted off it. It was a very nice move. Now, another thing that's interesting, the rules say you're not allowed to raise your mask like that. You're meant to keep it on. And certainly not meant to take it off. Because it's a way of trying to influence a decision. But I've not seen this referee before, and I think that she doesn't know that rule and is giving him a bit of leeway.
I can tell you one thing for sure, Richard. I know this referee very well. She's very regular on the circuit. I believe that the referees have all been told here that we can have a little bit of latitude at these championships. Applying the rules that are important to the decision making in the hits must stand, but lifting up your mask, you know what? Does it really hurt too much?
You see, that's what a racist will do for you. He's had the decision reversed in his favour.
Well, 20 points to 17. Ilgin Güklar, our Turkish coach, going to have a look at the video of her own volition, one might say. I think Richard thinks that the American maybe influenced that a little bit. But nonetheless, it was a great leg from Japan, and Mamata scoring 12 points to 5.
Well, that's really made a match of it. So 2 fights left and only a 3-hit lead now.
So we move on to our second fights from the Category B fencers. And Meraki is back on.
Having lost the first fight 5-0, remember.
Up against Josh Runyon, the world champion. Here's a bit of a contentious one for you. Right, with this situation where you've got the C category fencers, the older fencers fencing first, then the middling ones, and then the children. If you get a run from your C fencer in that fourth leg, the run potentially has the opportunity to build. If the order was slightly different and perhaps the older category fencer was coming after a good run from a B or an A fencer, does that run get halted, or does the momentum keep shifting towards the team that have had a good leg?
Well, you're talking about A, B and C fencers. That doesn't really influence things. It's a matter of how strong people are within their own age group.
Exactly, yeah. But the reason I ask these dumb questions, Richard, is it's so different to the open team events in terms of all the fencers fence each other in those team events, and
that is really different. And the fact you're fencing the same person twice, unless you get substituted or they get substituted, means that, you know, if you work out what your opponent is doing the second time, you really can change things around.
Very good point. So yellow card there for crossing his feet for Meraki. Alerted the referee, the central referee, Ilgin Güklar, alerted to that by the assistants, and that's why we have 2 assistants at a finals level at World Championships.
Ooh, a decision I don't like at all, but the Japanese is thinking about it, but he's not going to protest. It's the crossing of the legs rule. It came in only a few years ago, so most of these fencers, all over 50, in their day you could cross over at Sabre without penalty, so it's very difficult to change your style despite the rules coming in, and you will see the older fencers doing kind of running action, which is now illegal, because in their day as young fencers it's perfectly all right.
Another interesting point, but I mean, with the changes of rules, they sometimes flicker back and forth, and I've heard a little rumour that there is some consideration for one crossing of the leg just before the final action being reconsidered in Sabre.
Well, over my long time fencing, next year I'll have 60 years fencing, I've seen the rules of fencing change at least 4 times.
Beautiful power riposte to get the last leg underway for the team from the USA.
And again, this fight, the first time they met, was 5-1 to the Americans. So after that blip two bouts ago, they must be feeling they're in the driving seat again.
Just getting caught in two minds or stepping in and realised he's made the wrong decision and it's too late to change.
Well, also the Japanese went with a point action, which went through the parry.
Well, here Kikuchi calls for a video review. Referee had given this as Lundberg's attack. Your thoughts on that one?
I thought that she was right. I think that the Japanese slowed his action to see whether he could change it, whether he's going to do it for a parry riposte, and the American went straight into it. I think it's the first time the Japanese have asked for a video appeal, isn't it?
I think it's the first time for certainly a couple of legs that they've asked for a review. The referee is back, having had a look at the video, and sticks with her decision. 3 away from the bronze medal, and a mini recovery from a big disappointment for the USA team. Well, there's a tumble in the middle there. That's the first time today that I've seen an athlete hit the deck, but well, physicality of Martin Lundberg straight back up.
Wield can be a bit flexible, you know.
And he is particularly fit. He's particularly fit and strong. I was just talking with Bill Becker, one of his teammates, yesterday when he came and did your job yesterday, and he was waxing lyrical about how strong he is.
Well, the other thing about the American team, they've had 15 plus years of having East European coaches leave their original country, Russia, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and many of them going to the States. And during that period of time, they've been able to bring up not only a whole lot of young fencers from America who are winning world titles, but they've been able to improve people of these age groups to become world contenders.
And that is a lovely attack there. A small disguise at the beginning, just slowing up and having a look, seeing that the opening was there. And Lundberg 1 away from taking the bronze for the USA. And there it is, attack given. Will there be a call of a video review? Well, there can't be because he's lost it. And Lundberg takes the title with his teammates from the USA, Josh Runyon and Richard Brown. USA will be standing on the podium and collecting bronze medals a little bit later on today. Despite that little mini run in the 4th leg there, it was pretty much one-way traffic, wasn't it, for the Americans?
It was. I mean, as I say, gold medalist, silver medalist, and the silver medalist only lost by 1 hit. So what the Americans must be doing is, we've lost 2 matches today, both of them 30-29. How do we let that happen?
Yeah. And that's good sign from them. They're strongly fighting, and it's how important these World Championships are, that they've come back from a bitter defeat to take the bronze medal here. But I've also got to say, hats off to this game and sporting Japanese team with a great deal of athleticism and a huge amount of spirit.
Well, when you think that the Americans won 30-21, which is a pretty easy victory, and they lost in the earlier pool match. So if they'd not lost to the Japanese, they would have had a better seeding and may have been fighting for a gold medal. So the Japanese really, in that earlier match, outdid themselves. And it's not surprising the Americans, having been made aware that the Japanese could spring a surprise, made sure it didn't happen to the bronze medal.
Yeah. They came out fighting strong. A little blip in the 4th leg, but quickly recovered from the USA. USA take bronze here in Cairo. So Richard, we've got a little time lapse as we just wait for the teams to rotate through. We're moving on to the gold medal match. Look, apart from the incredible fencing, which is amazing here at these veteran championships, what else is so wonderful about the